Everybody ready? Sheila? All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Southern Shores Planning Board, March 18th, 2024. If you all will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next order of business is approval of tonight's agenda. Can I get a motion to approve that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for tonight of March 18th, 2024.
Thank you, Tony. I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, none. Okay, the minutes from December 18th, 2023 is next on the agenda. Corrections, additions, anybody?
I didn't find any personally, but
I had just a simple typo on page 8, line 346, probably should be capital ZTA. Anybody have anything else?
no. No.
Okay. Then I will move to approve the minutes of December 18th, 2023. Could I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Okay. Public comment. I don't see anybody in the crowd raising their hand, so we'll move on from that one. And go into old business. It is ZTA 23-05 zoning text amendment application submitted by the town of Southern Shores to amend town code sections 36-57, 36202 D2, 36203 D2, 36204 D2, 36205 D2, and 36206 D2 to amend the town's current lot width requirements by amending the definitions of building setback line and lot width, and by establishing new measuring points for lot width. Wes, could you kind of give us a brief overview or analysis of what we're looking at with this?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman Ward and members of the board. This is old business, so obviously this is something we've been talking about for a while. We've been working on. So this is the latest draft that we as staff are recommending to you all. I've got the proposed language up on the screen. The changes that we made since the last time that you all reviewed it, I highlighted them. So we are requesting or proposing to amend building setback line again. In this case, we deleted street right of way and used front lot line. And this would be the point where, or the line that is parallel or to the building setback line would be parallel to concentric with the front lot line instead of street right of way. We thought that was a little more clear. And nothing changed with our proposed definition of lot width since the last time you all had seen it. And then in 36-202 D2, 203 D2, 4, 5, and 6 D2, we have revised the lots that are cul-de-sac lots by saying, or just adding that cul-de-sac lots, the building setback line shall be established 25 feet from the front lot line or the point where the lot is 100 feet wide, whichever distance is closer to the front lot line. So those are the changes since the last draft that you all saw, I believe, was in December, at your December meeting.
Thank you, Wes. I want to back up just a minute. I got ahead of myself. I meant to recognize our new alternate member, Charlie Reese. Welcome, Charlie. Charlie's going to be entering into discussion tonight, and Michael will be the voting member tonight in place of Jane Collins. So thank you, Charlie, for saying you would, and I still hold to my statement that you're overqualified for the job, just like Michael is.
Honored.
Thank you.
Does that mean we're underqualified?
I
I just want
I-
to
I think
clarify.
he
I
was
wasn't gonna-
specific about
I wasn't-
alternates. Alternates.
Yeah,
I wasn't-
okay.
I wasn't going there, but speaking for myself, possibly. You grow into the position. Okay, well, let's start off some discussion here. Everybody get what Wes sent. I had him send you some stuff this morning that had 3 sketches. One of which you've probably seen before. It was the cul-de-sac sketch, just a pretty classic cul-de-sac. So Wes, tell us what are we looking at with the language that staff is proposing right now on that particular drawing?
So at this point right here, is this where you're saying the lot is 100 feet wide?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of arbitrary. The red dotted line around the inside perimeter is.
Setback.
We're going to discuss
Okay.
what that line is, but yes, I would call it a setback line.
Okay, so with the current proposed language on a cul-de-sac lot, this appears to be a cul-de-sac lot. You would measure 25 feet from the front lot line. That would be this point. The lot's not 100 feet wide, so this proposed language would allow it to go further to this point,
Right.
where it is 100 feet wide. And that is now what we're calling, or what we're defining, what we're saying is the building setback line.
Mhm.
And then per the other language, it would have to remain 100 feet wide all the way to the rear lot line.
The way it
The
currently
way
is.
the way we're currently proposing it.
Well, the town council passed June of last year, June the 6th, 8th, something like that, that's in place right now, and you have to be 100 feet from front to rear. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's,
The way it is currently
yeah,
in
yes,
place.
yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. To the rear lot line. Right now, it's currently defined, lot width is minimum horizontal distance between the side lot lines of a lot measured from the front lot line at right angles to the rear lot line.
Mhm.
And the width of a lot at the required building setback line measured at right angles to the rear lot line. But yeah, so looking at your drawing, where the lot becomes 100 feet wide, that would be the building setback line.
Mhm. And if that 100-foot line that I have there was slid back and it only achieved 100 feet at that distance, it would still, that's where you would take.
That's where the measurement would be taken, yes, sir.
Right. Anybody got any questions about what that all means?
I do. Line 27 on page 2. For all other lots, the building setback line shall be established 25 feet from the front line. Does that mean that all houses have to be built based on 25 feet from the front line?
This is saying the building setback line has to be 25 feet, but also in this case, the building setback line would be the same point at which the front yard would be in the RS1, and I think all the other districts, it's a 25-foot yard setback requirement.
So the building could start anywhere?
The building could start from 25 feet going back.
That's why I thought we had the word minimum.
We do for setback, for the yard setback requirement is a minimum distance, 25 feet. This is saying that the building setback line, where it has to be 100 feet wide, shall be at 100, but the house can be anywhere within the window, the building window. 25 on the front and side and rear, and 15 on the sides.
Can I jump in for a second and read? And I want everybody to look at the email that I sent this morning with the 3 sketches attached. And I'm going to read the 4th paragraph, which says, and I'm writing this to Wes, I believe when we started this process as directed by town council, the objective was and still should be how to minimize reconfiguration of non-conforming adjacent lots to other lots under the same ownership per section 36-132T or 2A through E that could possibly result in flag lots or other irregular non-conforming lots. Our focus should be on this situation rather than existing standalone lots that are legally non-conforming but are absolutely entitled to be developed. And that cul-de-sac lot would be a prime example. That is a standalone lot. I mean, we're not trying to say, a ton of lots in Southern Shores can't be built on. We're talking about recombination and subdivision issues, I believe, is.
The main purpose, I believe my main purpose and staff's main purpose was to make this ordinance or lot width requirement less ambiguous.
Right.
That was our main purpose.
But all the lots.
With non-conforming lots in the back,
Yeah. But all the legally non-conforming lots that are out there right now, that one would be a legally non-conforming lot.
Right now, yes, sir.
And would have been 20 years ago.
Uh,
Well, maybe 10 years ago. I don't know
Yeah.
when the ordinance.
It depends on, probably depends on
But-
who's in, yeah.
I don't think that that's our issue, is trying to say, well, we got to make that into a conforming lot. That lot can be built on all day long.
Yeah, we just want to make it more clear is what we want to do.
Yeah, understood.
And so, Andy, back to your drawings.
Yeah.
The 3rd drawing that shows the reconfiguration of a 40,000 square foot lot
Right.
into 2 lots that have flags.
Mm-hmm.
That's our intention, is trying to prevent people from developing their land in that way.
Well, it's not, I don't know if it's our intention or not, to tell you the truth. However, I will say that this is an existing 3 lots side by side, or 4 lots side by side. They were platted a long time ago as 3 lots. Lot A and Lot B and Lot C. Lot C is 150 feet wide.
Right.
So in 1971, I think those lots were bought, sold, whatever. But it was It was Lot A, Lot B, and Lot C in its entirety, 150 feet by 270, I believe, roughly. These are just rough figures. And in, I think, 1997, the owner, and it's under same ownership. All these lots are under same ownership. The owner in, I think, around 1997, decided that it would be advantageous to split that big lot, which had been platted as a big lot, into two smaller lots. And that's what occurred, and that's what we're looking at today. I mean, it's not up to me to say, well, it's something that we don't want. We got to talk about it. And
Well, I recall that it was about the time I was probably an alternate. There was someone who subdivided their property, and they did so with an easement of that, what we're calling a flag there. They did it with an easement of 30 feet across, the front to get to the back. And the town, the planning board said, easement, that's not really good enough for us. We want, if you're going to do that, it needs to be an ownership. And so we took out the term easement and said, okay, you can do this as long as you own the property going back for that front flag, where the flagpole, if you would be. And that's where it was. That's where it was left until there was another subdivision that you took advantage of the language that said you can't build closer than 25 feet from the street. That's your minimum setback. You have to have 100-foot width. You have to have ownership of 30 feet. But it ended up, those lots were configured in an unusual way, those 4 flags. And I think that's when people started this whole conversation. Once again, do we want flag lots? Are we going to allow recombinations to create flag lots? And I go back to, I feel like 20,000 square feet is a large lot by beach standards, certainly. And obviously, it's enough to accommodate septic for that property. The 30-foot entrance area, okay. If people are adamant that a new lot should have 100-foot width at, wherever you're starting that new lot, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I think, I'm fine with the language in the ordinances as it was before we started this whole business.
I almost
There
am
are
too.
very few lots that are left that could be re-subdivided and still meet the criteria that we're talking about. I think we're doing something that's pretty reactive and not necessarily better.
Well, this is a long time ago, when we first started down the trail of non-conforming lots and just trying to eliminate 50-foot lots. And the whole thing was more of a density issue. We were trying to eliminate the development of smaller lots under same ownership. And, all that non-conforming language was put into place. So that, I think we're solid on that language. It's just, what do we want to do as far as lot width goes? Wes, if you could bring up the other diagram that I had. Yeah. I mean, that's your classic cookie cutter 20,000 square foot lot that there's quite a few of those lots in Southern Shores, but then again, there's quite a few that aren't. If we go back and look at the definition of building setback line, Wes, could you show me, I'm sorry. can you show me on that diagram where the building setback line?
Right here.
What are the ones that run parallel to the property line? What are they called?
Side yard,
Yard?
side yard parentheses setback. And
They wouldn't be considered a minimum building setback line? Because that's what
per
a
the,
lot of surveyors put on their survey when they're showing that dotted line there.
per the town, the ordinance definition and the zoning ordinance are setbacks. Front, side, and rear are referred to as yards, parentheses setback.
Mhm.
And I know at the last meeting, when we discussed this and the conversations that you and I've had and what you sent here, it sounds like there's some confusion, understandably, between setback line and yard setback. Well, because coincidentally, the front yard parentheses setback is 25 feet here, but in this case also, we're saying, per what the ordinance says, the minimum, the building setback line is that same exact point. So, I mean, if there's confusion there, I'd be open to changing the term building setback line to something else. I mean, if it removes confusion, if it makes it clear, if that's an issue, take away building setback line and call it what it is and say lot width line or something to that effect. Because if you look in the ordinance, if you go down definition of yard, that's referring to your setback for structures. Anything 30 inches above, 30 inches and above the ground. And with respect to building setback line, we're not using it for that. We're using it for lot width measurement. At least in my mind. So, I mean, I could see a version where we do away with that term, building setback line, and come up with another term for that line.
Well, I mean, once again, in that email I sent this morning to you, we had used or we're discussing using the building setback line definition as meaning the line within a property defining the required minimum distance between any building and the adjacent right-of-way or lot, which exactly is what that dotted line is. You cannot exceed that dotted line going outside of it on the sideline, which would be next to another lot or the rear line of the property or the front, with the exception of that 3 feet extra on the front. And it just, to me, if we call it what is shown as those dotted lines up there, if we call them the building setback lines, in parentheses, yard, or I don't know, but it seems confusing when you get an as-built survey from a surveyor. They put MSDL on that dotted line, and it's minimum building setback line.
In most cases, they'll say MBL or MBE.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that doesn't help is that there's a definition for building setback line in the subdivision ordinance, which is the one you're
Well,
referring
that's
to.
what I'm referring
The one I
to.
was referring to is in the zoning ordinance. So it doesn't help that we've got two different definitions of the same term.
I maintain that all along is let's get one definition that works in subdivision in chapter 30 and one that works in 36.
Well, would y'all be agreeable to creating a new term with respect to lot width?
I mean, I think, so I did have one question real quick. So what is the minimum frontage requirement?
You have to have, it's in another section, 30 feet of frontage.
Okay.
You have to have what?
For a driveway, right? Is
30
that what
feet,
you're
30
getting
feet
at?
of frontage.
No, that the lot has to have 30 feet of frontage.
Well, I say that, but that's a standard, but also, not long after the subdivision that was approved, one of the ones you're referring to on Hillcrest, whenever you create a lot now, currently, the lot has to have frontage on a public street, and I can't recall if it has to be the 30 feet or the 100, but 30 feet as far as the standard goes.
The minimum frontage requirement.
Yes.
I mean, I think we should either go with setback or yard. and probably not both.
For structures.
For structures. And usually the only reason, and we do this a little bit in our ordinance, the only reason you would usually have the yard provision is, sometimes you have exemptions for what can be located in the yard, but you could easily just say that these are exempt or not subject to a setback or subject to a lesser setback or something like that. But I think you just define what a building setback building setback is, and front and side and rear building setbacks. And then, how the lot width relates to those is different, but I think that simplifies it.
But how do you define the front lot line? Is that defined by the street right away?
So the zoning ordinance defines lot line front. And that is
It's lot line front, lot line rear,
Yeah.
lot line
the
side.
line separating said lot from that street, which is designated as the front street on the building permit, certificate of occupancy, or subdivision plat. That is the front lot line.
So if you're going down the street, you can't use the edge of pavement as the,
You cannot use edge of pavement, that's correct, because the
It
edge of
varies
pavement,
quite a
there's
bit.
typically right of way that extends to the front lot line. So that's why we thought it's also clear to use front lot line instead of edge of street or whatever.
Mhm.
But that's, yeah, we do have a definition for front lot line, and that's in the zoning ordinance.
If we're looking for terminology and most of the surveys state it one way, why wouldn't we go with the survey to make it easier for, in other words, if the survey calls a line a certain thing, why not just use that? Why change what is coming in to you or going to builders? And we have a different definition than the surveys that come into you. Just a curiosity question. Why are we trying to create something when already the surveyors mark it a certain way? The builders look at it like that. And then why not go with how the surveyors define everything?
Well, I would like to see the same definition for building setback line in both the subdivision section and general zoning section. I think they should be the same. I mean, basically that's what we're talking about is, and I still maintain we're talking about, how we treat lots that have the potential to be recombined and or subdivided. Just like the lot that you were referring to on Dogwood, I think the other one, Wes, remind me, it was on the corner of Dogwood and Hickory, right? No, I'm sorry, Hillcrest and Hickory.
Yes.
There was a
it.
subdivision
It
there.
was, that was a subdivision.
It was a huge piece of
Two
property.
large, it was a huge piece, and there were still two fairly good sized pieces that
Correct.
came out of it.
And the 100-foot across the front was maintained for both of them
At 25 feet, yes,
at
sir.
25 feet. It
Yes,
was
sir.
close, but
Yes, it was close, but
Yeah.
yes, sir. Right
it
there.
was,
I agree with something Tony said, that I think if we use the term building setback line, we should identify that as whatever the surveyors call it.
Setback. And-
minimum building setback line, MBSL.
MBSL.
Yeah.
I think we can say somewhere that they're the same, or put MBSL after building setback line if we want to keep that term. To me, building setback line sounds like a layman's term. But anyway, we should have MBSL
Yeah.
in here.
And that would just be with respect, regulation of structures.
That's what the
And-
building
and-
setback line is.
And
That's
not,
right.
and not for lot width. We would need to come up with something different for lot width.
Lot width, right. We put that wherever, somewhere else.
I was half joking when I said it earlier, but what would y'all think of lot width line instead of building setback line?
Yes. Well, lot width line, go back to the dotted, the
Well-
rectangle. The lot width line is the solid line that runs,
Around.
perpendicular to the street at right angles
Oh,
to the rear.
Well, what I've seen a lot of, if you can bring up the cul-de-sac drawing. So what I've seen a lot of is that, you would have the minimum building setback line front, let's say is 25 feet, or where the lot meets the minimum lot width required. So in this case, yes, the minimum required is 25 feet, but at 25 feet, the lot's not 100 feet wide.
Mhm.
So the minimum building setback line in the front would be reset to whatever the distance the lot meets the minimum lot width.
That's been done here too. That has been done here, and I think it could be switched. I think you could have a minimum building setback line and a lot width line.
I don't know that you want to, I mean, you could do it that way. I don't know that it needs to be that complicated, though. I think what you just say is the minimum lot width is 100 feet. And you can't, even if you've got
It
at
becomes
25 feet back, you can't build until you've reached that 100-foot width or whatever the minimum width.
But let me ask you this, go back to the rectangle again.
The other right.
Okay, yeah. That one, and I'll use this as an example. If we squeezed, if that lot was deeper, say it was 250 feet deep rather than 200. If it was 250 deep, and if we squeezed the front two lot lines, the property lines, in to say 80 feet at the street, and they didn't make 100 until they came nearly to the back, the rear of the lot. Where does that fall in this ordinance?
Well, if it was a proposed lot, it wouldn't be able to be approved. And if it was an existing lot, it would be non-conforming.
Right, well, and that's not what we're worried about. If it's an existing lot and it's non-conforming,
Except based on what I mentioned, then it would be problematic because then if that 100-foot would set the building setback line, it would be problematic for that lot.
They wouldn't be able to develop on
What's
it.
that?
They wouldn't be able to develop it.
Right.
an existing lot that was like that, because I guarantee you there's plenty of lots that don't hit that criteria of 100 feet in the front and maybe have a slow taper to the rear. And they may not hit 100 feet until they're,
Right.
I haven't,
really close to the 25-foot setback line. There are
In the rear,
situations.
right.
I'm coming to this late, but why can't you just say both? In other words, you can say you can't build unless, or the setback is 25 feet from the street and where the lot is 100 feet. So that if it was 25 feet back, but the lot is only 90 feet there, you got to go until a point at which it is both. You have both conditions met.
I think might be appropriate for re-subdivisions, but for the non-conforming lots that are just 90 feet wide all day long,
Yeah.
those people ought to be able to build at 25 feet. It's been there for a long time. For recombinations and for re-subdivisions or subdivisions of lots, you could put those kinds of restraints in.
Mhm.
I think,
Well-
like Michael's had said, his verbiage was a little problematic for that situation.
And I'd go back to just trying to kind of funnel us into not thinking about that lot right there that might have been platted in 1958. You can build on that all day long. And if you stay within that setback line, you can build anything you want to. that is 35 feet tall and, you know, it, conforms to lot coverage, right? I mean, that would be, if that was squeezed in at 80 and it didn't hit 100 till it nearly got to the back of the lot, you can still build on that thing. I mean, it's not that we're trying to legislate every lot into conformity. We're talking about trying to limit what you can do at the subdivision and recombination situation. I'm not worried about the lots that are non-conforming legally.
Right. One, in the instance that you said, it's more likely this would be 75 feet wide and
Potentially.
go all the way back at 200. It would never reach 100-foot width.
Yeah.
And that's what we have sitting in place.
But we're not worried about that. But if we had a city, and I think what we're getting at, Wes, is if you go back to the 3 properties, one of which had been divided, that those 2 lots are A and B are 27,000 square feet. They're conforming. Everything's, you know, fine. If that lot had not been divided into 2, lot C, it would be one big lot. And I think if you had that whole parcel, if you owned it, the question is, should you be allowed to make 2 lots out of one big one?
Well, I guess the last time we talked about this, what's the end goal here? What's the objective?
To minimize small lots under recombination.
But don't we do that by telling you what the minimum lot area is?
But you could make it on minimum lot area, I would think.
Right, so what are we really trying to do then?
I think when you go to minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet, somebody wants to subdivide that thing, the C, and if they did it 50 feet all the way back, they're just hamstringing themselves in what they can build on. Nobody's going to subdivide and create a 20,000 square foot lot that has setback requirements on the sides and front and back. You're going to end up building a shotgun, you know. I think the 20,000 square feet is what covers us. And, you know, that's my threshold of low density. The size and shape of them, I think our setbacks are going to create the restrictions.
I don't know how quick you could get over to some lots up on Wax Myrtle that we've looked at before that are under same ownership.
Talking about here?
That's a big tract there. Is that 250s? Or 4?
Isn't there another layer?
Yeah, there you go. There's a prime example of 4 50-foot lots.
Yep.
That if you got creative, you could get more than 4 lots. I mean, the ordinance says you got to recombine those 50s. They're under same ownership. And we took care of this at non-conforming language several years ago.
So depending on situations, if you have non-conforming lot adjacent to another non-conforming lot under same ownership, they have to be recombined, except for there are 4 exceptions,
Right.
situations.
Yeah. But for a general example, you were asking, Michael, what, and that's not the only situation. There are several others. That one, yeah, comes to mind fairly easy, but
Will you go to the property record? Let's see the square footage. ,80,000 square feet.
they're,
Yeah.
so divide by
So,
4. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but that rear area, that's a separate lot.
That's right.
It's on the other street, I think.
You have two 100-foot.
Owned by the same.
No,
No frontage,
no frontage, no.
Yeah.
so that's not buildable.
Click on that, on the,
That's it. That's it.
yeah,
The tax records.
it's not civic association, is it?
I don't know why they haven't shown that way, because it says lots 14 through 17, but this would be 14, 15, 16, 17. What would this be?
That's additional area.
Bonus
But they
area.
don't have it shown.
I know that's the same situation that was on Skyline.
But
It was owned by the same person who bought a big swath behind his 4 little lots.
But to get back to your question, Michael, the non-conforming lot ordinance says if those 4 lots are under same ownership, which they are, prior to sale or transfer. And I can't see it, but you might could get 3 lots rather than just 2 out of there and wiggle things around to be able to achieve that. And I think all along, the non-conforming ordinance that we finally got into place, we as a town said we did not want 4 lots there for density purposes. And, you know, the land use says large lots. So,
Well,
But I'm still
individual-
confused here. So these lots are 50 by 200,
correct.
Yeah.
so they don't meet the minimum lot size.
No, but if they hopscotched owners, which it happened before we got the zoning ordinance, the non-conforming ordinance in place, there was a hopscotching of lots so that the owner, there was owner A, owner B, owner A, owner B. So they got around it and they built a small little house on a 50-foot wide lot.
This is
But
one-
yet still a half acre lot though.
50 by 200.
Yeah.
10,000 square feet.
So they
If
have
it's
3
not-
existing non-conforming lots
That's right.
that at one time were owned jointly.
Yeah, I think,
I don't know about these.
yeah, those are
So
under,
at one, they were owned jointly and then somebody sold them off.
no, somebody came in before, like the week before we passed the non-conforming lot and
But this one, they wouldn't be able to do it because right now.
no, it's too late.
Right.
Yeah. If they got in a week before the zoning, I mean, the ordinance was passed, they could have done it.
Right.
Now
So,
they can't.
so what we have are 4 non-conforming lots under the same ownership.
Mhm.
If for some reason they weren't under the same ownership, and those were just 4 non-conforming lots, we'd have 4 houses there.
Correct.
So my feeling is there's 80,000 square feet in that entire parcel. If the owner of those 4 lots can figure out how to subdivide those into 4 lots that each have 20,000 square feet and they meet the minimum width requirements and the 30-foot access requirements, knock yourself out. That's your property. And that's 20,000 square feet per lot, which in my mind is low density. And we're in a better position than if these 4 lots were owned by different people and they built 4 little bitty, they built on a 50-foot wide lot. I don't
Well,
know that I'm in a better position.
I think a lot of people would differ with you, that they would rather see bigger lot with a house on it rather than 4 little small lots right in a row. I mean, 4 little small
That
houses.
might be
Right.
what people would prefer, but the truth is that it was platted as 4 50-foot lots. And
Right.
it just happens that one person owns them all. It's just serendipitous that those aren't owned by 4 different people. Because
Well,
there are
but-
plenty of 50-foot lots that are individually owned.
That's right. And they're non-conforming and they can be built on all day long.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those cannot, the way the ordinance reads right now, without recombining.
Recombining, that's right.
So what about that parcel in the back?
Yeah.
How does that, come into play? Can they use that as their septic area?
I don't know.
If they
I mean, I'm not trying to make an example out of that, but that's one that comes to mind. For Michael's question was, what are we trying to achieve?
Well, and in this case, denying the individual the ability to develop that lot, that parcel that's behind them, that extra space, that's a taking.
No, I don't know what that extra space is. Oh,
That's 40,000 square feet.
yeah.
And we're basically saying, no, you can't do anything with that. If you want to use this property, you can divide it down the middle, and then you've got 2 40,000 square foot lots. That's what we're telling the person.
Right, because of the lot width that we're talking about.
That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Well, it seems to me that back parcel is, if you wanted to build a big old 4 giant houses on the parcels there,
You could build 3. What?
well, a shotgun house, full length,
Well, I still think that,
they would, but obviously they would need that back parcel for septic fields.
I still think that the spirit of the land use is large lots, minus homes on large lots. I think that the town has made a real concerted effort to go in that direction. And that's why we put the non-conforming lot language together and created an ordinance. I'm just, once again, I'm not advocating one thing or the other. I just, I'm trying to get to where we understand that if there is subdivision as a byproduct of recombination, then we've got to understand that the lot might not be a rectangle.
Can they use that back parcel for something like wastewater disposal if they, can you have an off-site disposal area?
I'd have to look into that some more, but I want to say that if you're talking about the septic system, in this case, you're talking about like a wastewater treatment facility or a private wastewater treatment.
I mean, you got 4 lots, you could have 4 septic, but you got enough area back there to say, accommodate a conventional septic for 4 lots. Or, they may say, well, let's pool our resources and.
Well, you could,
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I'm betting, the house out on Duck Road, on the 50-foot lot, not far from there, you know which one I'm talking about, the 50-foot wide lot that was built on. It was a paper street. He's built a small house and got a septic tank and a swimming pool, by the way, all on a 50-foot wide lot. So the question is, do we want bang, 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 4 of them in a row like that? I think not.
Well, as far as making it a mutual septic system, it then would come into the bedroom situation where you could only have so many bedrooms per house
Mhm.
for the septic system, and you're combining 4 houses. So I don't think, probably you could do that. The other thing is, we're supposed to be figuring out definition of front lot.
Yeah.
I think we ought to get
Yeah.
back to figuring
Yeah.
out that definition.
I agree. But getting back to the language, I mean, does anybody want to try to make a stab at what the definition of building setback line means? I mean,
NBSL.
yeah, but I would definitely say we should recommend putting the language that's in the zoning ordinance, chapter 36 or section 36 would be the same as the subdivision definition of building setback line. Can we do that?
You can make them consistent.
I think so. I mean, we're talking about defining the same thing, whether it's at the subdivision or single lot, I would think.
And it's just, like I said earlier, I think to make it clearer, if we're going to keep building setback line or say minimum building setback line, I think that should be for structures. And we should have another term for lots, for width of lots.
Absolutely. I agree. Lot width can be measured wherever we decide to measure it.
So,
But the minimum building setback line is the minimum building setback line.
Right.
NBSL.
Yes.
so go back to the rectangle with the dotted lines. Okay. Terminology wise, the 4 corners have an X. What is that? What does that represent? If you go across from X to X, show me where
So if you go from X to X here.
yeah,
that's
what
the-
is that called?
That's the front lot line.
Front property line.
Front lot line. Then if you go from here to here, side lot line.
Mhm.
Same for here. Here to here is rear lot line.
Right.
Building setback line currently
It's just the
for
front.
structures and for lot width is right here, 25 feet.
It's the lot width is
The lot width,
measured from sideline to sideline at that point.
it is.
That
So
is, that's the distinction, is the side lot line drives the setback line.
And that's the way right now, it's the minimum horizontal distance between the side lot lines of a lot measured from the front lot line at right angles to the rear lot line. So I guess what I was saying was, this right here will be your minimum building setback line, but there would be another line that goes all the way across.
That would
where
just-
They overlap right here for the lot width line.
That's right. That it goes from side lot line to side lot line at the 25-foot setback line.
Yes.
On this example right here.
Currently, that's what it does.
Yeah.
And that's what we're proposing as well. It's just-
But when you move the minimum set or the setback line, what does it say? Lot width means the width of a lot at the required building setback line measured at right angles to the rear lot line. If that lot isn't a rectangle and it pinches in at the street, well, where do we hit 100 feet?
So let's say, for example, you hit 100 feet.
How about even farther back? I mean, like, go back and hit 100 feet, way back in there. What happens then?
I've never seen, honestly, I can't recall ever seeing a lot where that happens.
Well, it's not an existing lot. It's one that may be, carved out of a situation.
But
With
you
the
wouldn't be able to meet 20,000 square foot lot
That's
size
right,
then.
yeah.
So you couldn't,
Well, now, if the lot was deeper.
you couldn't create That, I mean, if it were to be, you'd have to look at it, but if the 100-foot line was right here, you would not have 20,000 square feet if the rear lot line's right there.
If the lot was deeper though, you would have,
And then your setback would move back and then you'd be able to possibly build there.
well, just as long as you've got 20,000 square feet.
20,000 square feet and 100 feet wide at the lot width line.
I mean, that's the whole reason you have variances.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to be able to write something that works.
No,
for
Well,
every
what was written
circumstance.
before worked pretty well. The minimum building setback line is 25 feet. You can go deeper if you want to, and you have to if your lot width is not 100 feet. It took care of cul-de-sacs, takes care of subdivisions, but it would allow for a flag lot if somebody's got a really wide lot that they want to subdivide.
Maybe I'm in the minority, but I don't care about flag lots.
I don't mean,
I don't think we
I don't
should
have real hard.
base
Obviously,
everything on
but when-
rarity.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we should base everything on something that's a rarity and
I
frequently
agree. I agree.
comes up. I don't even know if there's a possibility anymore, you know? But I think we're beating our heads for the very minor aspects that might come up, some rare occasion.
Yeah, it-
And as he said, there's variances for that.
Probably maybe a half a dozen situations that still exist,
Mhm.
I would say.
And
So,
the example we looked at in the aerial map before, that person's got 80,000 square feet. Boy, oh boy, I don't know how in the world they can possibly get more than 2 lots out of it. But with 80,000 square feet, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to figure something out to put a flag back there or something like that. And that's okay. There's 80,000 square feet there. I don't have a problem with that.
so Wes, if you go back to the flag situation, I guess if, like the 100-foot line was achieved, say that far back on the flag to our right, if that's where it hits 100 feet, what do we call that? What is that terminology?
That's the minimum. It's the minimum building setback line, the way the code originally had it defined.
I agree.
I think the way the code originally was defined was kind of ambiguous or
Well, it just
termed.
It says the minimum building setback line is 25 feet. So in the flag on the left, that 100-foot line could be, I mean,
It's
where it says
right at the street,
that's
or-
25 feet.
But the second one,
The second one, you've got to go back until you get to 100 feet. That's where your minimum building setback.
so do we even worry about hitting that 100 feet? And just say, you got to have 20,000 square feet in a subdivision? I don't know.
I mean, there are a lot of communities where that's the case, where they don't have a minimum lot width requirement.
Mhm.
The commercial zoning district doesn't have a lot width requirement.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the conversation and the feedback we've gotten to this point. So I guess, I mean, I could ask you all if you all are in favor of flag lots or if you're in favor of no lot width. But I think what maybe I might just ask the question right now is, do you all have a sense of whether or not you want to recommend approval or disapproval of what's in front of you?
I
And if-
I wouldn't feel comfortable recommending it to, in this current form to go to town council.
And if
That's what
not,
you're asking.
and if not, and we might have to poll you all, would you like to see something different that would allow pretty much any kind of lot as long as you have 20,000 square feet? Is that what you would recommend instead?
The 20,000 square foot is set. Everybody's in favor of that.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, that's fairly easy to attain.
Agree on 20,000.
Well, I mean, it's not like we're saying you gotta have 20,000 square feet to build a house on it. It's just when you create a new lot from the date that this is, passed, codified, then it becomes problematic at subdivision if you don't have that 20,000 square feet. But going back, there's tons of lots that don't have 20,000 square feet. That some are unimproved and some are improved.
I think the 30 feet that's required for frontage absolutely needs to stay. That's, that the owner, that a lot must be 30 feet wide at the beginning, at the street. The 20,000 square feet, I agree with. The rest of it, the lot widths, I don't have a strong opinion about that.
I guess my question would be, who's initiated this text amendment?
The town, staff, we've initiated it
What's your goal?
to make it clear.
Okay.
We're trying to make
Well,
it clear.
you
We
got a
obviously
nail for
haven't
that.
accomplished that.
I think
What we have, and I'll just say, what we have right now is clear, but it's very strict.
Yeah.
It only allows this.
For
Yes.
right.
And nothing's gonna happen until that gets fixed. So I would tend to say, if you want to poll the planning board, or maybe even I can put it into the form of a motion. I would like to have a little bit more work on this before we feel comfortable. And the notion of not having 100-foot requirement in there somewhere kind of runs against the grain to me a little bit. But yet I'm not sure where that 100-foot needs to be attained. Would you say that you have to hit 100-foot from, say, 5 foot off the rear setback line? If you haven't hit 100 by then, you're out of luck. I don't know. But 100-foot is a moving target for,
Well, that's why here, 25 feet from the front lot line or the point where the lot is 100 feet wide, whichever distance is closer to the front lot line.
that's
I think-
cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Or-
earlier we were saying we're just doing this, but that satisfies the cul-de-sac.
And potentially other non-rectangular
Yeah,
lots.
Non-rectangular, what I think the only thing is codifying using MBSL. I think we would have put that in, that should be
Well,
added.
that would be in the definition.
That
of
would be in the
building setback.
definition. But D under A, I think it pretty much handles most of the properties. You're going to have bastardized properties. You're always going to have something that's a little bit different. And as Mike said, that's what you have variances for.
Well, if you can attain, and then once again, not talking about individual
Yeah.
lots, we're talking about the potential to recombine and then subdivide. And as long as what you're pulling out of a subdivided situation would meet a certain criteria, if that 100-foot was 5 feet off the back property line, you got 100-foot. But if you went through that lot and you never hit 100 feet at any point in that lot, then it would be not allowed. You've got to hit 100 feet somewhere moving from front to back. Because that's kind of what that cul-de-sac thing is there's the wording says that you go back as far as you need until you hit that 100 feet. That's what that language says.
Yeah.
So I would be inclined to say somehow we got to figure out an ordinance that says it's got to be 100 feet at some point on a newly subdivided lot. And by the way, it's got to be 20,000 square feet minimum. Does that make,
On a newly subdivided lot, yes. On a newly I agree with that. But I think.
I mean, I like that language for,
Yeah.
but that's just for,
That's for everything but the rarity
we're,
and a subdivided lot. That's what it's for.
we're bringing into conformity, non-conforming cul-de-sac lots.
Yes. So that's why I think it's really good.
But the language, I think, could be used for any newly subdivided lot has to hit 100 feet where?
So it wouldn't just apply to cul-de-sac lots that 25 feet from the front lot line or the point where the lot is 100 feet wide, whichever distance is closer to the front lot line.
Something like that.
Well, and I guess the question is, do we care about a house or a structure being constructed where the lot is less than 100 feet in width?
No, just as long as you conform with the setback lines and stay within the perimeter of your building setback line, you can build your house as close to the street or as far back from the street as you want to. You just can't go over that dotted line.
So you would just get rid of the 25 feet and just say wherever your lot is 100 feet wide.
It's got to it's got to hit 100 feet at some point if it's a newly platted lot, which it would be if it was in a subdivision, right, Ron?
Mhm.
If it was a newly platted lot in a subdivision, it would have to hit 100 feet. Where? I'm just asking. But I think that if we say it's got to be 100 feet. If it's the very back lot line, so be it.
That's for minimum lot width. That's not the minimum setback line, right?
Get rid of setback.
We would still have setback, but we would create a new term for the lot width. Your lot, what you're talking about is a lot width line established at some point where the lot is 100 feet wide. But then you still have your 25-foot minimum front lot, 25 front and rear and 15-foot side minimum building setback lines
Or yards.
or yards.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We're not messing with
We would
the-
get rid of yards and just call it minimum building setback line,
Yeah,
front,
the
side, and
dot-
rear.
the
And
dotted
then-
line.
And then the lot width line, I mean, that's what I'm gonna
If,
go with for now.
if we want to consider just saying, once again, it's all going back to subdivision situations where someone could create 4 lots out of those, or 3 lots out of those lots up on Wax Myrtle. But we gotta be in agreement where that 100-foot minimum width is attained
Anywhere.
And then-
anywhere.
and then
Just
the-
as long as it hits it anywhere.
Well, I guess,
It's
so
got to
if
be,
it's not associated with where you can build the house, then I guess I wonder what's the point in having it at all?
because, I mean, it's not building the house. I mean, you subdivide the lot first and then you build
Correct.
later. So, in order to subdivide, we need to make certain that we have 20,000 square feet of lot area and hit 100 feet of lot width.
Right, but I would tell you the reason that most municipalities have a minimum lot width requirement is to create some regularity on the dimensions of lots so that you have this rectangular grid layout where all of the houses are set back almost equidistant, and where they're set back, the lots are an approximate consistent width. Whether, I don't know that I ascribe to that, but that's the whole reason for having that requirement.
We're
Well,
having a minimum lot width.
Correct.
I think that for simplicity, and it just makes sense if that's how we want to go, that you've got to hit that 100 feet at some point from front to back, from either the front lot line to the rear lot line, not setback line, but just use lot line. It's got to be 100 feet somewhere in there. If it isn't, you don't get to subdivide it. I mean, you don't get to use that in subdivision.
Here's another question that comes up. Should it, what we have recommended previously and what we have right now is that it would have to maintain 100 feet after it gets to that
Yeah,
point.
and that is hyper restrictive, but that's the way it was before we ever started with this, that is how that ordinance read.
Right. But I'm just saying, with absent that, you could have some very irregular shaped lots,
At subdivision or just in general?
subdividing or recombining.
Yeah,
And the truth is, in subdividing, you're going to, in almost every instance, have irregular shaped lots. That's just that's the
that's
nature
right.
of
I mean, you know.
taking a piece of property
Yeah. But
and
but-
creating more lots. And if you have the 20,000 square feet and 30 feet at the street, I mean, I've been through like, the subdivision of the lots, on the ocean front with the little arched, little street there.
Mhm.
And I mean, over the years over the years, different sections of Southern Shores was platted by different people
that's right.
and at different times. And what was, there are lots of irregular, funny shaped things. So I think the 20,000 square feet keeps us in the low density business.
Well, but I still think that 100 feet just keeps from, I mean, it's always been there. I think we need to maintain it somehow. It eliminates, a lot that might be 50 feet wide and super deep, and you get your 20,000 feet that way. At subdivision.
But just a question, if the lot's 50 feet wide and you have minimum 15 foot from the side setback, that's 30 feet right there. That
Yeah.
only allows you 20 feet.
That's right.
To build anything on.
You want to pull that house up?
There's one right on.
Seal?
We're a little more generous on the side setbacks.
But there's a house that was on a paper street in Southern Shores. Builder bought it. He had the option of going through the process and he would have gotten an additional,
We, on certain situations, on some of the non-conforming 50-foot lots, the setbacks reduced to 12 feet on either side.
yeah. And he chose not to do that because he wanted to build this house. I think it was a spec house, but he built on a 50-foot lot with 15-foot side setback lines. That house is 20 feet wide and it looks like it if you look at
Yeah,
it.
if you go in it, it
Yes,
is.
yeah. It's a shotgun house.
So does that require a variance
No,
to request that?
No, it did
It
at
was a-
first, and there were several variance requests, so we just ultimately was decided to just go ahead and change it. So, well, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a few questions just to poll you all, just to get some
Yeah.
guidance? Unless somebody's in a position to make a motion on giving us guidance. It sounds like everybody, we agree that we want the same definition of building setback line or something similar, whatever that term may be.
Yeah.
As long as they're consistent in zoning and subdivision.
right.
Everybody agree? Should we create a new term for lot width and not use building setback line? Does everybody agree there? Use something new.
Mhm.
All right, raise your hands, please, for all in favor to create a new term.
Lot
related-
width.
Yes, for lot width,
Okay.
for measuring lot width. All opposed?
I think there's some relationship between the two.
There is.
Is everyone in favor of 20,000? I mean, we don't have a question. I'm not going to ask that. Is everyone in favor of the lot having to be 100 feet wide? At some point.
At some point. I am.
Raise your hands, please.
At some point.
Two. All opposed to that?
I think the goal has to be defined.
So
For having that.
are you,
minimum
or Robert,
lot.
are you saying that it could be less than 100 feet and you'd be okay with it just as long as it was 20,000 square feet?
In the case of a subdivision? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and what was your rationale?
I think again, I think the goal, the objective, the reason why we have a minimum lot width has to be established.
So, but you're not in favor of it being 100 feet at some point?
Depending on what the goal is. What's the objective?
Tony, what,
Yeah, I'm the same way. What's the end result, or what is the goal? Doing this 100 feet, what are we trying to do? I mean, we're saying we want it 100 feet wide. We have a 20,000 square foot lot. We want it 100 feet wide. I don't know.
I can tell you where this came from.
The 250s.
from Wes?
From the 250s.
Well, right, but
Yeah.
somebody pulled off, zoning ordinance off the shelf and said, well, it says here we have to have a minimum lot width, so what should we put down?
Well, that was a long time ago.
Right, so
Yeah.
what's it relevant any longer?
You know what's interesting is Duck and Manio have similar language to what we had originally, and I asked them both how they interpret it, and they both gave me a different answer.
Well, I still like having 100 foot in there. If you're creating a new lot at recombination. I just, it's been 100 feet. I don't care where it comes from. I still want to maintain 100 feet regardless of where it's measured from. I don't have any heartburn saying that 100 feet could be the rear lot line.
Yes, sir, I understand. So we have this application before you all. I'm going to say at this point, we will amend it so that building setback line is changed to lot width line in this definition, this proposed definition, as is. Everything else stays the same. And then for the definitions, anyway, in section 36-202, we would get rid of, for lots that front a cul-de-sac, the building setback line shall be established 25 feet from the front lot line or the point where the lot is 100 feet, whichever distance is closer to the front lot line. And get rid of, for all other lots, the building setback line should be established 25 feet from the front lot line.
Delete that.
You delete it.
Would you all be in favor of that, or?
No.
Actually, I think I'd like to cut things short here and move on. And I want to make a motion that we not approve this tonight.
Very good.
If that.
I'll second that.
That's my motion, not to approve it.
Hey, y'all vote.
At this point tonight, and I feel like we need to come to a little bit better consensus. And Tony, you second?
Yes.
Any more discussion on that?
Not on that.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand. Aye. Opposed, none seen. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if we can have a little more discussion on the issue, not on this particular ordinance. The idea of singling out cul-de-sacs is pretty arbitrary in my mind because there are many streets in here that have very sharp curves on them. And they create a very similar pie-shaped lot, obviously narrow on the outside of the curve and very wide on the inside of the curve.
Yeah.
And so trying to make this a regular thing specific to
Yeah.
cul-de-sacs
Yeah.
doesn't seem
I'm with you.
appropriate.
I like the language in there, like Tony pointed out, that language. But why does it have to be a cul-de-sac? Why can't it be just a irregular shaped corner lot? Well, there are tons of them. So, yeah, anybody want to take a quick break or keep forging on?
I just need some water.
Let's recess for 5 minutes and come back. I'm thirsty.
That's what I was.
Are we ready? Okay. Everybody ready?
Ready.
Bring this meeting back to order, please. Okay. On the agenda, we've got new business. This is ZTA 24-02. In brief, it is an application submitted by the town to amend the town's lot disturbance stormwater management permit process. Wes, I'll let you give a brief synopsis of what we're looking at.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Tonight, the next item on your agenda is ZTA 2402. And I'm bringing it up on the screen here for you now. Y'all will recall that you all reviewed and recommended ZTA 2401 to the town council, which they adopted last week with some revisions. And I can send you all the final version if you all didn't see or listen to the meeting. But one part of 2401 that I told you all when you all considered ZTA 2401 in February, included some proposed changes to 36-171 lot disturbance and stormwater management, and that addressed tree removal. And this version 2402 also addresses tree removal, but it only applies in the commercial zoning district, and it only applies to tree removal in the front, side, and rear setback areas. What we're proposing right now, if adopted, it would establish that a lot disturbance and stormwater management permit is required to remove trees that are greater than 6 inches in diameter, measure 4.5 feet above the ground within a front, side, or rear yard (parentheses) setback on any unimproved lot in the general commercial district. And also, this proposed language establishes penalties for violations, basically saying that it would be an offense for any person to remove a tree. It would be an offense for an owner to authorize someone to remove a tree on their behalf. And each tree is a separate offense. If a tree is removed, it would have to be replanted following being notice of violation via warning citation. They'd have 30 days to abate the violation by replanting.
What's the replanting size?
There's no proposed requirement currently. We just say you'd have to replant it. But I would say it will similar in size, but there's no specific.
Yeah, six,
Size.
it'd be hard.
Similar in size to what was
6 inch
cut.
diameter tree.
60-foot pine tree.
Similar in size what was cut or can grow to be that size anyway. Obviously, it's not going to be that size when it's planted. So that is essentially what we're proposing at this time.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
So,
Start us off.
So this lot disturbance permit would be required if an existing commercial property owner wanted to remove an existing tree. They would need to get a lot disturbance permit to take that tree down.
If the lot is vacant and if the lot is in a side, front, or rear setback,
What if the lot is not vacant?
they would not need a lot disturbance permit and they could remove the tree.
Okay.
I wonder if the replanting requirement accomplishes anything as necessary. Because hypothetically, let's say, because the only violation is they didn't get the permit, right?
Well, the violation is that they removed a tree without getting a permit.
Correct,
Yes.
right. So let's say they do that, and then they replant, and then they come and get a permit and remove the trees they just planted. They could do that. So, and this is just applicable to commercial property that has to go through site plan review.
It's just applicable to commercial property.
Right, so that presumes they would have removed the tree before they came through site plan review.
They could, and it would be in violation
Right,
of this.
and then they would have to come through site plan review still presumably.
Ideally,
Unless they're not gonna develop, I guess.
Ideally, if someone owns commercial property that's vacant and they intend to develop it, they would go through the site plan process and obtain a lot disturbance stormwater management permit after the site plan approval process, and then show trees to be removed if not shown before during the site plan review process.
Can we make them plant during site plan review?
I would say yes. If a violation were to come up during a site plan review,
Yeah.
I would say yes, they would have to if this were in place.
I mean, part of me wonders if instead of a replanting requirement, if there's and this may be something to talk about with the town attorney, whether or not there's any ability to put a provision in there that says violations shall be taken into account or tree removal taken into account during site plan review. Because I just think the planting requirement, one, you're not going to get them to plant the same size tree, and you don't necessarily want them to either. Anything over 6 inches is going to be challenging from a survivability standpoint.
Yeah.
And then it says that it shall be an offense for any person to remove a tree. Is there any penalty clause? I mean, what is the offense entail?
Removing a tree without obtaining a lot disturbance stormwater
So
management.
if they remove a tree in violation, it shall, and on line 36, it says, it shall be an offense for any person to remove a tree in violation of the provisions of this section. Is there a statute that we could invoke that describes what that offense would, be held to? I mean, just because it's an offense, is there a fine?
I think it's a misdemeanor zoning violation.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
think
would be,
that,
no, and that's what I'm saying, that's what it says on page 4.
Yeah, fine.
That's what the offender would be subject to, which is
oh, okay,
a wa-
yeah,
a wa-
yeah.
a warning
Yep,
citation.
Exactly, yep,
a warning citation, and they have 30 days to abate the violation. If it's not abated, then the fine could be up to $500 each day it continues to exist.
right,
And that's established in section 1-6.
yeah,
of the
yeah.
ordinance.
As far as replanting, to use previous things that I've been involved with this number 3 version that I've been involved with. What was written at one time, and it was approved by the old planning board, removal of a tree with they use 12-inch diameter here, and they use DBH, which is at the height, breast height, but requires a replacement tree on a 1-to-1 ratio with a minimum above ground height of 4 feet. So in other words, they're saying if you cut down a large tree, you have to replace it on a 1-to-1 ratio with a tree at least 4 feet high, or 2 replacements at a smaller height, a 2-to-1 ratio. I'm not saying this has to be done, but I'm just telling you what was a previous planning board approved this. So if you are looking at replacement, I think it's good to have some type of regulation in place ahead of time saying 4 foot, a 1-to-1 ratio. If you take down a tree illegally, you have to replace it on a 1-to-1 ratio. If it's and tree has to be 4 foot high. That kind of goes with the 4.5 foot height of the trunk size, the measurement. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just giving, this is a suggestion that was passed before, and I don't know whether you want to go that way or not, but I want you to understand this has been discussed in the past at length, and this was the result.
Well, I got a question, Wes, and I had asked Wes kind of 3 o'clock this afternoon, just popped in my head that what he sent all of you was the original ZTA there's three different versions of the last CTA that we passed. Version 1, version 2, and version 3 would be the one that went to the council and passed. And version 1 and 2 had language in there for residential. And I was wondering if you could pull, yeah, you're there. Section 36-171, lot disturbance. At the February 21st meeting, the planning board town staff removed this section prior to the planning board meeting. The plan was to revisit with a specific ZTA, which is what we have before us tonight. My question is, why was the residential part of that pulled out? I understand why one part of it was pulled out, but as far as having a surveyor show every tree on the lot that was 6 foot in diameter, that's ludicrous. But the other one, the first provision, I'm questioning why that got pulled out. And it would start with subject to the requirements. Why was that pulled out?
Yes, sir. So first of all, we did think it was quite a burden to have someone hire a surveyor and show all trees greater than 6 inches in diameter, measured 4.5 feet above the ground that would be to remove from the lot. That was a burden.
Get that.
That was too far. With respect to just applying it to commercial districts, in light of a recent special use permit application we went through, I think it became apparent to staff that there are concerns with buffers with respect to vacant lots and adjoining property. And this is a way to encourage retention of trees inside and rear setback areas. That's why commercial only.
Understood.
Yep.
But why couldn't we do a residential? I mean, if you go to 36-171, if everybody's got that in front of them, at the front, I mean, at the beginning, it says, starting with line 6, subject to the requirements. And then it says, it goes on to say the removal of trees greater than 6 inches in diameter above the ground on any unimproved lot, which is, it says in all districts. We took all districts out and turned it into commercial district only.
Correct.
I want to know why.
The same answer I gave just a minute ago, because we felt after this review of a special use permit application and sensitivity and concern with a vegetative buffer, that
For a commercial.
this is a way to encourage retaining trees and vegetation.
So, well, yeah, I agree, for a commercial use. How
Correct.
about for a residential use?
Right.
Um,
You all could recommend residential use.
Well, I looked at what we've got in front of us, starting at line 6. And if you'll humor me, I'll read if you go to line 6 and go all the way to the far side where it says no, including all areas within the extraterritorial jurisdiction should be struck, which it's not. That should be struck anyway, right? Or should have been.
That's in the old,
Right.
the current version.
Right,
doesn't-
right.
The
The one
current
that's-
version 2402 does not, it does
Yeah.
have it struck.
The one that's in front of us. And then, but starting at line 6, where it starts at no, I would
I'm not
Amend-
following what you're reading from.
Here you go.
the
reading
36-171,
Okay.
the original,
Okay, I
This
see.
this is it with the
the
new one.
original ZTA
2401 ZTA language.
and the second version as well. It was on two versions that I have.
But that's still 2401.
Right.
Tonight on the agenda is 2402.
Mhm. Yeah. Anyway, if you read, and I'll read the whole paragraph. Subject to the requirements of GS 160D, if applicable, in all town zoning districts. No grading, filling, topography alteration, or removal of any tree greater than 6 inches in diameter measured at 4.5 feet above the ground on any unimproved lot, or demolition and clearing of improved property, nor any man-made change, yada, yada, yada. But I think that we should certainly have some allowance to restrict cutting trees down in residential area without getting a lot disturbance permit. And I think that language that I just read, saying that no grading, filling, topography alteration, or removal of any tree on any unimproved lot would be proper language to put in there to, when you go to get a stormwater or lot disturbance stormwater permit, you should be able to show what you're doing there. It's not at the point where you're requiring the surveyor to show all the trees throughout where the house is sitting. It's just to protect from going in and cutting trees that before you get a lot disturbance permit. I think we're saying you can't alter the terrain, you can't alter the topography, you can't fill. Well, why not? You can't cut a 6-inch in diameter tree down without jumping through hoops before you get a building permit. If you want to cut down every tree on the lot after you get the building permit, have at it. I'm not saying that we should be entering into that discussion with this, but I am saying that to get a lot disturbance stormwater permit, you can't go cutting down a whole bunch of trees without jumping through a hoop or two.
Yeah, I understand.
And then I guess in the application for a stormwater lot disturbance permit, Wes, what prevents an owner from cutting trees and then not developing the property?
What prevents an owner?
From cutting down trees and then not developing the property? Could that occur?
Currently?
Yes.
Yes.
With this ordinance geared towards commercial only? Still yes?
Yeah.
Would be. I mean,
Right now, so if this were adopted for commercial property,
yeah, only.
they could obtain a lot disturbance stormwater management permit and not develop it, but they would have had gone through the site plan approval process first.
Residential.
Commercial, that was.
No,
commercial.
I'm
You asked-
asking
you
about
asked commercial.
residential. I want to, I guess, long story short, I want to see residential covered in this.
Okay, well, you all
Yeah.
can certainly recommend that.
And not to, like I said, not to the point where we're saying that you can't take down every tree on your lot if that's what you want to do. But if you're going to do it before you get a site plan, to apply for a tree removal or a lot disturbance, you got to jump through the hoop. I think we're eliminating residential altogether
That's why a lot of
here.
the conversation in the past has been triggered by clear cutting lot, residential lots.
And I've told Wes this, I think it should be your right if that's what you want to do. And there's a great example on Dogwood Trail of someone that did just that, and people were turning cartwheels. You remember it, Tony? It's about halfway down Dogwood Trail. Go by and look at that house today. It could be on the cover of Home and Garden magazine. It's beautiful. And they cut down every tree on that lot. So who's the arbiter of whether you want to cut down a tree or trees because you're afraid they're going to come through your roof and all that stuff? Yeah, I get it. I want to keep every tree that we can. But what I don't want to see is someone going onto a lot and cutting the heck out of it and then not have to have to build on it for a number of years. It gets done and it's not right.
But there would be nothing, even based on this, there would be nothing from preventing someone to get a land disturbance permit to cut down trees, clear the lot, and just leave it.
That's right.
Yeah.
This-
And that,
We're not saying you can't cut the trees. We're saying that you would have to obtain a permit first.
I mean, before you talked about expanding it to residential, my suggestion was going to be that for the commercial, that it be any tree removal, regardless of size.
Yeah, and I mean, again, one of the reasons for commercial is because buffers are in some cases required. And buffers can retain existing vegetation. So this was a way to try to encourage retaining existing vegetation. In residential, when you have single-family dwelling, next to single-family dwelling, there's no buffer required. So, I mean, that's why we were looking to go with commercial with this version of it. But right now, it's greater than 6 inches in diameter. But I guess my question then would be, Mr. Zenner, what's the difference between a tree and a shrub, or a tree and a bush, if we don't have a size on it?
Species. A tree is a tree is a tree.
Yeah.
well,
Even though you could have, anyway, yeah, I hear you. Yes, sir. I hear you.
You can have a Russian olive that's 12 foot high, but
but
I agree with the residential aspect of it, but I've been pushing this since 2007, the first time. And I do agree that I think the same thing with the residential, and also with the water runoff is, I think, because of the development that's been going on for the last 20 years since I've been here, there's more water runoff. And I think by maintaining the trees and then evaluating later, rather than cutting everything down and evaluating after the cutoff, after you cut everything, I think it'd be better to maintain the trees. And I'm definitely for the residential aspect. And as a compromise, because I know what I won't say it, as a compromise, it might be good even to consider, if no one goes with the residential areas that buffer commercial. If you're really looking to,
I still
I think
see
residential.
a blanket, the way it was written, the original version of 36-171, when, you know, the first two versions that we had before the residential language was backed out. I still like having the first part of that discussion about the trees 6 inches in diameter. You shouldn't be able to take them out, just like you shouldn't be able to put fill on the property or rearrange the topography of the property. And, you know, I'll use a prime example, and Wes has heard me talk about this too. I mean, I've lived on Bayberry Trail on the canal there for, almost 40 years, and haven't had a lot built beside me or in front of me. I don't have a problem with people building a house. It's their right. But in one particular case, an excavator comes in and starts, you know, I asked Wes about it, and the guy said, well, he wasn't going to alter the topography of anything, just wanted to clear out a little bit in there. Well, he took down more than his share, I thought. But we don't have an ordinance in place. Wes has to use discretion, and he, go in there and clear out some vines and scrub and stuff, but you can't go taking down, 6-inch trees all day long and then not get a lot disturbance permit, which he didn't. I mean, initially, he did not have a lot disturbance permit when he went in there. Eventually, he did.
I think you have to consider trees not just as the aesthetic of something that you see, but there's a stormwater function that they are providing below ground. And to allow that infrastructure of the trees to go without being evaluated is, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. You're gonna have surface runoff, you're gonna have canal water impact being removed.
But how do you regulate taking trees down when some people just don't want trees and shade and they're worried
Think
about
of them as
them?
infrastructure instead of
Well,
trees.
I'm just saying, it's
Like you won't let
major
them
property right
Pull
in
up a
trees.
manhole, because you don't like the manhole,
Well, manhole serves a purpose.
or so do
Yeah.
trees.
But I just think if you want to take down trees because you're afraid they're going to fall on your house, that you're entitled to do that.
Yeah.
It's your property right. And
But if you don't have a plan for the
if you-
property,
if you feel like your living room's shaded way more than it needs to be, and you want to get rid of the trees, do you need to call up some committee and go, man, come out here and I disagree with it.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is the undeveloped lot. And cutting them down in undeveloped lot, because that does change the topography, because they cut down the tree. And I've seen this, and you've seen it much more than me. Then they dig up the root. Well, as soon as you do that, you've changed the topography
Exactly.
of the lot.
But you could cut down that same tree. You could come out there with a chainsaw and cut down that same tree and leave that root ball in place. So that's why I say that you can't cut without getting a lot disturbance stormwater management permit. You can't cut down any tree bigger around than 6 inches before you attain that permit. Once you attain that permit,
And, yeah,
I think
You know.
I'm fine with that being the standard for
Yeah.
residential, but I think
Yeah.
it should be any tree for commercial.
yeah.
And we just have to recognize one of the challenges is going to be if you say of a certain size is enforcement, because you're then trying to determine what the diameter of that tree was after the fact, which is almost near impossible. I think you could end up with, let's say it's in here for residential, someone saying, well, that tree was only 5 inches in diameter. I measured it. I mean, how are you going to prove it? But I'm fine with it being tied to residential for 6 inches, undeveloped lot, and then commercial of being any tree.
well, I don't know if it's how hard it would be for Wes to separate out between the two. I doubt it would be that hard, but if, as the first version of 36-171, subject to requirements in all zoning districts, that would be residential and commercial and R1 and, R8, R10. To me, that kind of encompasses what we're trying to do, but I would be amenable to breaking it out, commercial. I just, a 6-inch, diameter tree on a commercial piece of property, and we're all thinking about the same commercial piece of property that has larger pines and so forth on it. I don't know if it's,
I have a comment. I'm sorry.
yeah, no,
I did interrupt.
I'm done.
The comment is this: do you see any difference in the permittable building area versus the setback areas? The setback areas, what Wes had talked about was in commercial areas, there are buffers that are required, and those buffers often occur in the, in the building setback area. And just from personal experience, I know that the area that is to be built, where you're going to build, that's where I have taken out some trees so that we can run sight lines and pull strings and that kind of thing. But in the setback areas, the 15 feet side, the 25 foot front, and in the back, we haven't done anything with those. But in just the area that we intend to build the house, I've cut several trees down. Just because I know they're going to have to go.
So what you're saying is maybe we craft something that would allow for some buffer on the side setback. I mean, basically it's going to be sides, maybe rear, I don't know, but.
Right.
But
But
front,
you can't touch anything within that setback until you have.
I appreciate where you're coming from, trying to achieve that, but.
And also the other part of it was when I contacted Wes about what was required for it, he said, don't disturb the land. And so for me, that meant, okay, I can cut a tree off. I'm not digging up any root ball.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not bringing
Yeah.
any equipment for anything
Yeah.
like that. And so I was doing it for our purposes.
But back to you, Tony, where you said, once and that's what happened across the street from me. He's out there with an excavator and an arm taking down stuff and clawing and moving.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted to get
He
the
should-
sight line. I know what he was after.
Well, he should have gotten a lot disturbance
Yeah.
permit before he disturbed that root or changed
Before he
any
ever-
elevation.
Before, he told Wes one thing and maybe did a little bit of something different.
Maybe.
I wasn't going to go over there and raise a stink with him because I've been there and, I just, but I didn't like it. It's fine. I don't have a problem with what he's done over there. He's done a reasonable job, manipulating a pretty crummy lot. But at the same time, he did take down some bigger trees and he did alter the topography, over there by, going in there with an excavator.
So do you want to go with the residential and commercial or make it separate? That would be, what would be more efficient, Wes, do you think?
You all can recommend, however you
Bring
See,
the residential in.
you all can recommend residential. I mean, if that sounds like what you all,
Yeah,
if that's what you all want to do, you would just take out, in addition to the provisions above in the general commercial district, you would just take that out.
yeah.
In addition.
Where's that?
On line 30 in ZTA 2402 on page 3. You would take out, it would just say, in addition to the provisions above, no removal of trees greater than 6 inches in diameter measured at 4.5 feet above the ground, blah, blah, blah. You would take out the reference to the general commercial zoning district.
I'm lost there.
Page 3 of
Yeah.
ZTA 2402,
Here it is.
page 3,
Yeah.
line 30.
Okay, starting with line 30, number 4.
Line 30, number 4, you would just take
Yeah.
out in the general commercial zoning, in the general commercial district. Because above, as you said, says in all zoning districts.
Well, if we did all zoning districts, then yeah, we would have to take out that because it would be redundant, right? We're saying if we choose to say in all zoning districts, then that encompasses commercial R1, RS1, R8, and R10. I think that we should leave all zoning districts
That's
in
what I'm
place
saying.
as
That's what
language.
I'm saying. You would, but
Right.
right now, the way it's worded, that only
Yeah.
applies to the commercial district. So
Right.
you would leave what's up there about all districts the same, but in
Right.
line 30, you would have to take out in the general commercial district, and all of that applies to all districts. Because right now, the way it's written, it only, that section, in addition to the provisions above in the general commercial district, that applies. So that's what I'm saying. That would accomplish what you all are recommending, that we would have to take out
But you would have to go back to line 27 on page 2.
That would stay the same.
Well, no, it would read, I would think it would read,
Says an ordinance.
about, there's no residential tree restriction in that preamble, the subject to the requirements. There's nothing in there that addresses tree restrictions for residential use.
Line 27 on page 2,
It says all.
that's saying that all, if applicable, in all town zoning districts. And then down below, you stop excluding the tree removal part to commercial, and it applies to all the residential.
But
In
it's,
all districts, not just commercial, but all districts.
okay. But it says, I think that if you read the version that we have here tonight, 24-02, if you read that, you would say, subject to the requirements of GS 160D, blah, 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 if applicable in all town zoning districts, no grading, filling, or, what did I say? No grading, filling, topography alteration, or removal of any tree greater than 6 inches in diameter measured at 4.5 feet above the ground on any unimproved lot, or demolition and clearing of improved property, and so forth.
It's basically saying the same thing, it's just in a different location.
So you left all of the lot disturbance language in place and just added
Yes,
this item 4.
yes.
Wes, the last thing I have to comment on, and it will be my last comment. The other 3 times that this has been brought forward, the tree was always 12 inches or 10 inches. And the reason they kept away from 6 inches is because 6 inches is thus, which is pretty narrow tree. I don't know where the 6 inches came up with but it's just something to consider that in the past, there was a lot of pushback with the lower circumference of a tree because 6 inches is like diameter, yeah. Is pretty, so it's just something, if anything comes up, all the others always had, the one I just read from was 12, and I remember there was a 10 inch also at one point. So I don't know how everybody feels about it, but I just thought I'd throw this out to you.
I don't mind 6.
That's fine.
There's a lot of undeveloped.
Just have to have a big calendar.
Try to do it on a live oak.
Just to, if we go back to this language by taking out in section 4, in number 4, we're covering all zoning districts.
Yes, sir.
Are covered by this ordinance.
But on line number 30, page 3, number 4, in addition to the provisions above, no removal of trees greater than 6 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet above the ground would apply to all districts.
Mhm.
And I apologize, I had not read this clearly enough. It says within the front side or rear setbacks
yeah,
already. Sorry, I apologize.
But as far as practical application of this from your office, it says all applications for a lot disturbance and stormwater management permit shall be accompanied by a survey and preliminary site plan prepared by a state licensed professional surveyor, so forth. That holds for over all districts. And from a practicality standpoint, once again, what prevents an owner from cutting trees and then not developing the property for several years, for starters? Is there any?
To answer the first part of the question, nothing changes about what they have to submit for lot disturbance and stormwater management permit,
Right.
including they don't have to show any trees on said survey. which is what's proposed right now. The second part of your question, nothing will prevent someone from obtaining a lot disturbance stormwater management permit, removing the trees, and not developing it for 10 years.
Is that what we want? Do you understand? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
they can go in and bring in a survey from a registered land surveyor and a site plan showing what they want to do and get a stormwater or a lot disturbance stormwater permit and do the work and walk away from it.
Yes, sir.
But the expenditure on their end would be, you'd have a site plan showing the house on it, right? Or would it?
Yeah.
No, for a lot disturbance stormwater management permit, it does not have to show a house. It has to show the elevations in reference to mean sea
What is
level. If they have, if they're ready to show a house, they do show the house. But in some cases, an owner will have a piece of property. They don't know where their house and driveway and septic and everything's going to go. They want the lot disturbance permit so they can prepare the lot so that they can have the room to get in there and their surveyors get in there and figure out where they want to put the house.
Understood, but what is the criteria for the lot disturbance permit then, in that situation?
A survey that shows spot elevations in reference to mean sea level throughout the lot.
And that's it? You don't
That's it.
you don't have to have a site plan. It doesn't have to be accompanied by a site plan.
It has to be a survey that shows the elevations at the corners, or a survey, if there's no home being proposed, it's a survey that shows the elevations, spot elevations on the lot.
Where am I've written this down, I just emailed it to myself, and I'm pulling it from somewhere, but once again, all applications for a lot disturbance and stormwater management permit shall be accompanied by a survey and preliminary site plan prepared by I think I may have put preliminary in there, but it should be required to have the survey and a preliminary site plan. I mean, otherwise, if you just got a survey and you show four corners of the lot, or that's about where you want to be, you can come out and inspect the four corners of the lot yourself, can't you? If they put stakes in the ground and say, this is about where we want the house to go. I mean, how do you usually do it? Do you do it, Kevin, come out and look at it?
If they stake a lot, yeah, then I can look at
But
stake.
what has to be shown on the survey?
If they're not ready to propose development and they just want to remove vegetation and then fill in where the trees were removed, they obtain a lot disturbance stormwater management permit by submitting a survey that shows spot elevations on the survey.
And they can take down as many trees as they want to at that point, of any size.
Yes. But they could also, even if they were proposing a house, they could do the same thing.
Yeah, but they would be a little bit more serious about doing it if they had a preliminary site plan showing the house seated on the lot. And I think that needs to be a requirement, saying that not only do they have to have a survey, but they have to have a preliminary site plan, because then you're investing money in you're moving towards a building permit.
Very good.
I mean, otherwise you could take a 15-year-old survey. Say, for instance, you buy a piece of property, an unimproved lot. You get a survey from the seller, and it's 15 years old, and you take it to Wes and go, I think, I want to put point here, 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 and here. Then you go out and take down every tree on the lot, and all you've had to do is produce a 15-year-old survey with 4 points to satisfy about where the lot's going. And it sits there for 10 years, because I've seen it at the bottom of East Dogwood Trail when you come out of the dunes and into the woods. That lot got cleared at least 10 years ago, and it sat there and looked like hell for a number of years, and finally it just mushed down. But
I mean, it's a challenge because
Yeah.
I don't know that we had the same issue in Nags Head, where people wanted to clear a lot and they didn't necessarily have a plan yet for the house. And we, the ordinance there did not preclude someone technically from clearing a lot and not building. But it also, and it was similar, it required somebody to submit a site plan for what they intended to build, but you still can't mandate that they build something.
No, but at least it's one more layer. And I would even go so far as to ask, can we tie the building permit to the process with a time limit for lot disturbance? I mean, rather than, I don't know.
Presumably what's going on is that people are clearing the lot in order to increase the value of the unbuilt lot, to be able to pass it on to somebody else. That's probably what's happening. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to spend the money.
Some people do it though. They just want to think about it. So, they're going down sharply down out of the dunes into the woods on East Dogwood Trail to the north when you're going down after the split in the road, or right there. A new house has been built on that lot. That lot was decimated. Completely taken out 10 years ago, and it never got built on. Would you want that next door to your house? I would.
What about keeping it where they can't take anything down in the setbacks whatsoever?
Yeah, but
Well, if they can't, at least you're maintaining something. And as, I agree with you, it would be nice to have that. But then again, you're going to have people say, well, I'm taking it down, and then the sale fell through. Or the house, I didn't get financing. There's all kinds of ways they can get around. But if you have it where there are setbacks, it cannot be removed from the side and rear setback until construction begins, maybe. I don't, at least at that point, you are maintaining a buffer. You are maintaining, helping with water runoff, because that's usually where it comes down the sides. And it's just a thought, but if we maintain the setbacks until an actual plan, construction plan or whatever.
yeah, but
When you
what,
have
The
the
building permit.
Building
survey
permit,
that
yeah.
has the four corners, say, then you could do the setbacks and just say, okay, you can't disturb between the four corners and the setback. That's a starting point anyway.
Yeah.
well, at the minimum, I would like to see preliminary site plan in there that makes them a little bit more serious about what they're doing.
Are you bound
People-
by that? Contractor, owner bound by that?
I think-
You could change your mind if you don't start
Yeah.
right away.
Wes, don't you, when you come in to get a building permit, you have to have a site plan at that point, right?
When you're ready to build on the lot, you have to obtain a lot disturbance stormwater management permit. So in the instances where they do not have construction associated with it, we will issue the permit so they can make the
Right.
lot more available so that they can get in there and do what they need to do. But they still have to come back and get another lot disturbance stormwater management permit when they're ready for construction. Then they show the house and the driveway and the pool and the deck and
Yeah,
septic and all that.
and that would
The first
be,
one requires all of those elevations.
The first one requires elevations in reference to mean sea level.
And it
And that's
requires
it.
them all over.
Spot elevations, yes. 'cause
Spot elevation.
What this is, right now, what it's doing is saying that if you're altering the topography, you have to obtain a permit. So showing the elevations, so we know what was original grade and finished grade.
Mhm.
So yes.
Right.
but right now, I could come in with a 15-year-old survey and show 4 points of where my house is allegedly gonna be. Go in there and start ripping around after I got a lot disturbance permit.
If you
And I
have
could-
elevations for all those points,
But,
if you have elevations for that site.
well, I'm just saying, I'd get a 15-year-old survey and get, that may have elevations on there, but probably not. It's not gonna have the points of, so you're going in to get to a surveyor to get the survey and show the points of the house. Why not require a preliminary site plan before you are issued a lot disturbance permit? I mean, it's just another layer, I think, that would keep people moving in that direction rather than
Well, right
take
now,
every tree down and,
well, right
and
now,
not build.
if they're ready to build, they do show a full site plan.
Yeah, after they've gone in and cut every tree down, if they get a lot disturbance permit prior to that.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is at least preserve the perimeter.
Yeah. That we could hold on to easy,
No
I
longer the
think.
perimeter, because it will give us whatever protections we can achieve.
Yeah, but it might be some little teeny saplings running down the perimeter, and then, you know, the nice big trees are in the interior
Right.
that may or may not get
Anyway, but it-
built on for a number of years. You could leave the saplings and take down the big trees and clear it all out and not build on it. I think there needs to be a way to move people towards not cutting trees before they're ready to build. However we do that.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, are we talking about something that we can achieve within this?
No.
Well, then maybe what we should do is move this along as stipulated, subject to commercial only. So I'd make that motion to recommend approval as presented, with the only change being, I think there's a typo on page 2, line 30, where there's a underlined or that is, I think, erroneous.
Yes.
Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Anybody want to
Would you
second?
state it again?
I'm recommending approval as it has been presented to us.
With the exception of the typo on line 30.
Correct. And I'm happy to accept any amendments to that motion.
Where's the typo?
Line 30.
Line 30 on page 2.
2 Rs.
Yeah, 2 ors, yeah.
And,
You want to
and
restate your motion again, Michael?
as presented.
Okay, as presented.
Yeah, and the only reason is I think this is serving an intended purpose, and I think there are larger considerations.
I'll second that with the comment that I think there is a high interest in residential, and I don't think we're ready for it tonight. That's the only reason that I would say this is for an intended purpose, as you said. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. I'll start discussion off. I see where you're coming from, but I think if we do this and just approve what's word for word before us tonight, I think the residential end of this gets pushed back and put on the back burner. And I would like to see the two combined so that it's over all zoning districts rather than just commercial.
Can I tell you a little bit more about my rationale? So the agenda for tonight's meeting, where ZTA 24-02 is described for the public's benefit, speaks about commercial only, doesn't talk about this being something for other districts.
Right.
So I think to stay within the four corners of that, I think it's appropriate to only address this. I think, like I said, I think there's merit beyond this. I think there's merit to making the commercial subject, or any size tree on commercial subject to this. But it seems like there's a larger consideration here. And, I want to give Tony 4 bites at the apple.
Your comment that the public is not notified about a residential conversation and how they feel. They have been notified about this, about the commercial side of it. And I think there is, would be a lot of discussion between individual property owners and property developers relative to residential, and they should get that notice.
Do you feel like that it's imperative that we pass this as some kind of stopgap for what we perceive is a threat as far as taking down trees in commercial property? Because that, to me, I'm with you, Robert. I'm opposed to Michael's motion because I want to see the whole thing come together. And I agree with you that it needs to be noticed as residential with commercial. I've had, some discussion about why was the residential bit taken out of the ZTA that you all heard. I wasn't here at the last meeting, but that was taken out. And I'm not quite sure I understand why, but I think that if we scrub this or, rework this new business and notice it as residential and commercial, then people get an opportunity to come and speak if they want to. But I'm not willing to say, I think this thing's outside of one typo is good to go. I just don't feel like I could vote for that.
I think it's good for commercial.
Yeah.
I think we can come back next month and try to remove the commercial designation. But for the next 30 days, or until council were to pass it, the commercial properties would have a restriction that they don't currently have.
Well,
Which is important in some of our commercial properties.
Yeah. Wes, I have a question. I'm going to throw out two properties, the stone properties, that's commercial. What are they designated? A C, commercial?
The large lot here
Yeah.
behind, yes, it's commercial.
It's commercial. What about the Saga property? What's that zoned as?
Commercial.
Commercial? Okay.
So those two properties would be affected by this, primarily those two.
Those two properties, yeah.
I don't know if there are any other undeveloped commercial properties or not.
So we could protect those right now,
Yes.
by letting this go through, that's done. Now we come back and we say, all right, let's add residential to it.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like the considerations and the points of discussion are different.
Yeah.
In a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, we're adding on
Yeah.
something that was taken out that I don't agree with. I think that it should have been left in the way it was written in the first two versions of that ZTA. The ZTA that was passed by town council did not have residential in there.
Well, respectfully, that's your opinion.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah. So any more discussion before we vote? One more time, Michael, say it.
I'm recommending approval. Motion is to recommend approval as proposed with the typo as noted, corrected.
Okay, and Tony second. All right, one more time. Any more discussion?
I think, did Robert say? did you say-
Robert seconded.
Oh,
Robert,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, motion by Michael, second by Robert. All in favor of Michael's motion, say aye. Opposed? Me. Hey,
Do it again next month.
well, I will say, if you all want to recommend to council that a draft ZTA be established that addresses residential too, I think you might be able to add that to your recommendation.
That's fine by
Are
me.
we
No
all-
objection there.
Are we all fine with that? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
I can-
good catch-all for,
Yes.
I mean, I'm disappointed that we can't get it all done tonight, and that's why I voted against it.
Right. Well, I can report to council with you all, with this
Yeah.
recommendation that you also by consensus said that these requirements should apply to the residential
Yeah.
district.
Now, on the surface, I looked at this as a good piece to protect the commercial buffer, which is what we've been looking at for a while. And yeah, this, puts it to town council to carry on with it. But we can't let this residential, restriction that we've been talking about tonight just die on the vine.
I agree.
All right. Okey dokey. Well, no public here, so we're gonna move on from public comment. Planning board member comments next. Charlie, I'll let you start off on that end.
Well, thank you very much for including me, and I can see that it's a steep learning curve, but learned a lot.
Well, we get off track sometimes, but that's okay. Michael?
I do have one suggestion,
Yeah.
though. I'll leave requests on this cul-de-sac language. from the
Okay,
first
good.
agenda.
Yeah, good.
No, I'll just add, so I think we're probably all familiar that Dare County is holding a housing task force meetings. I attended the first one, personal interest. I plan to attend the second one tomorrow. The second official one was canceled, so this is technically the third, but it is the second meeting. And I would like to suggest, I'm not able to attend the board's next meeting. So I would ask that we add an agenda item for the May meeting to talk about how we as a town intend to address housing and housing affordability within town relative to that initiative.
For a planning board or town
It's
council?
for planning board.
Okay. All right. Can you make note of that, Wes?
You said which meeting? Which meeting?
To the May meeting?
The May planning board meeting?
Yeah.
Housing affordability and
The work of the task force.
work of the Dare County Task Force?
Yes.
I don't know if you want to pursue this, but if you poke around in our ordinances and see anything that would shed some light on what we can and can't do,
Sure.
that would be helpful. Tony?
And the only thing, one of these meetings in the future, I think we have to go back to the commercial standards. And it seems like we've been getting more and more ZTAs from the town council. And if we get light on one of them, maybe we can again discuss the commercials.
I think that that's probably moved up the list, hasn't it? I mean, what's your take on that?
We're working on it and hopefully we'll have it to you soon.
Okay.
Oh, okay, great.
And I had that written down as well, Tony, commercial design standards. We've got PUDs sitting out there, I think the town council wants us to take a look at. And I would sure like to get back on accessory dwelling unit language. Legislature had us balled up, but they didn't pass anything of substance. And I would like to look at the possibility of what we can do to regulate accessory dwelling units within 160D requirements.
You know, that's on the docket for the General Assembly this
Oh, yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
They carried it over from
Yeah.
last session.
Yeah, they did, but they didn't vote on it, but they carried it over. And, do you have any more info on what happened with accessory dwelling units in legislature?
I don't.
I still think there's some room for us to regulate the proximity of where the ADU would be in relation to the house. From what I've looked at, it looks like we do have a little regulatory power, not a whole lot. We've still got to allow them. But anyway. Ed,
Yes.
Robert?
I'm just going to announce that the Coastal Studies Institute is having their open house on Saturday, April the 20th.
Great. All right, Wes, announcements on your end.
Next meeting scheduled for April 15th.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, come on.
Hey, he's going to go home and have a drink.
Yeah. All right, anybody want to make a motion to
I'll make a
adjourn?
motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none seen. Meeting adjourned.